we talked about business domain, because before we get into domain-driven design, business domain, we talked about what is a business domain. It defines the company's main area of activity, like FedEx, UPS, courier services, Starbucks sells coffee, and Walmart, Amazon are into retail. And Amazon also have multiple business domains. We talked about that, cloud computing and retail. And Uber are ride services. Okay. When we talk about domain-driven design, we often talk about business domains, subdomains, domains. These are the definitions that we need to make sure that we are aligned on these definitions. Business domain is a much higher. It defines the company's main area of activity, and a subdomain is a fine-grained area of business activity. Like all of the company subdomains, they align with the business domain. So what are these subdomains? These subdomains have to interact with each other. Whenever there is some initiative, then there are multiple subdomains that will accommodate that initiative. And there are different types of subdomains, which we talked, which is a core subdomain, generic subdomain, and a supporting subdomain. Okay. A core subdomain is what the company does differently from their competitors, which is what is their core strength. What is the company's core strength is what the core domain says. And these are some of the interesting problems that the company solves within their domain. For example, if you take Uber, ride-sharing algorithm is their core domain. Okay, mobile app is experience is a core domain, and driver management is a core domain. So you need to understand in a business domain, what are the core subdomains that we are referring to. Again, at any point, if you have questions, please ask. Then we talked about generic subdomains in the last session. These are things that the problems that are already solved. We don't want to go back and then reinvent the wheel. These are the problems that are already solved. The business activities that all companies pretty much do in the same way, like authentication, authorizing the users. You can go and sign up with an IDP and integrate for your authentication and authorization needs. And accounting, billing. Still, there is some integration. So, but these are more of like generic subdomains. And then supporting subdomains are something that supports your company's business. Any core domains, anything that supports. These are your CRUD, create, read, update, delete type of interfaces, any ETL operations. These are the problems with obvious solutions. There's no complexity as such, but this is supporting. So basically, your core domains are the ones that are core to your organization, then the generic domains, then the supporting domains. When you're planning domain-driven design architecture, you need to plan what are my domains. First, identify the domains and see whether they are core domains, whether they are generic, whether they are supporting domains, what level of integration that we need to do, whether these are products that we buy and use out of the box or some integration is needed. Okay. And the main idea of this domain-driven design is to collaborate with subject matter experts, or called domain experts, which we also talked about domain experts. They are your SMEs who know all the intricacies of the business that we are going to model and implement. Okay, they represent the business, and they also they are maybe the people who identified the business problem in the first place. So they are the ones who provide in-depth knowledge about the business domain, so that you can visualize what is the business domain and how do you build software that aligns with the business domain. Basically, the concept of domain-driven design is you need to model your domain, build a software that aligns with your business domain, and make sure that within the context, you speak the same language and things mean the same within the context. We'll talk about bounded context in the next slide. Any questions so far? Sorry, because we already covered this one in the last session. I'm trying to go a little fast so that we'll have time to discuss the orchestration and choreography. Okay, next, the business problems. Okay, when we talk about these domain-driven designs, what is a business problem? Business problem is not always some technical problem that you need to solve. These are, you are solving problems, identifying the domains, identifying the business needs, can be minimizing the manual labor or managing resources, supporting decisions, can be anything. So first, fundamental thing, you need to understand the business problem, you need to define your domains, you need to identify whether they are core domains, supporting domains, generic domains, and how they interact with each other. And then the ubiquitous language concept that we talked last time, where if you are communicating, if multiple parties are communicating, then they have to speak the same language. Yes, it's a common sense, but still, this is one of the building blocks of domain-driven design, where you need to speak the same language when you're designing, and any ambiguous terms. It can be, if you are in the healthcare, you talk about policy. Okay, policy is like your insurance contract. We all sign up for insurance policies. It's an insurance contract. But when you talk about some permissions, then there is a policy. Okay, a regulatory rule that has a policy. So when you're talking, it should be pretty clear, and then it has to be within that context. When you talk about a policy, everybody has to align on the terminology. So, and also synonymous terms, which is, we use subscribers, we use visitors, we use users and customers. So all pretty much in some products, they may mean the same, but you need to clearly identify within the context of what you're building, within this domain, what is a user, what is a visitor, who is a visitor, an administrator. So clearly you need to align. This happens only with collaborating with business users, and understanding how they are calling this. Okay. Next is the important thing we discussed in the last session, which is modeling. Once you gather all this information, you need to model, you need to create a structure that defines what you are capturing and also what are the relationships. Okay, so this is your model, and these models fall within the bounded context, which also we discussed in the last session. Bounded context is just breaking down the whole thing, identifying the domain and what is my context. For example, customers in an online shopping, customers placing orders, products. These are different building blocks, and these are your boundaries. It's a logical boundary for you to build microservices. Okay. Then overall, a domain-driven design, now with all these terminologies, is an approach to software development that focuses on understanding and modeling the problem domain with which a software system operates. So which is modeling your software based on your understanding of the domain and collaborating with domain experts to understand different flows and how these things they communicate, so that you can build an effective system. Yeah. So this is about domain-driven design. In any